Roll call, please.
Mr. Gilbert?
Here.
Mr. Teetsort?
Here.
Mr. Heather?
Here.
Mr. Detzel? Mrs. Tawby?
Here.
Okay. I'd like to start the meeting off with our mission statement. Northwest Local School District will create a responsive learning community where all students are valued, challenged, and guided along the pathway to success. And first action item is to approve tonight's agenda. And we'll need a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Of course, passes 4-0. That brings us to 5.1, Northwest Kisser.
So I'm excited tonight to bring to you a presentation about a partnership that we're going to be kicking off tonight. I'm going to introduce Dustin Gehring, our Director of Student Services, who's going to start the presentation, and we have some partners here from some of our partner organizations who are going to help describe the program and how it's going to impact Northwest.
Good evening, everyone. We are very excited to talk a little bit about tonight's, in the next phase in our relationships between the district, Legal Aid Society, as well as Hamilton County JFS. We have a long-standing relationship with both of these organizations. We've partnered many, many times across the board to support a lot of families in our area in so many different ways. Most recently, Legal Aid Society and Hamilton County JFS were looking for an additional partner to expand their existing and very successful KISSER program, also known as Kids in School Rule Program, which most notably has been a part of the CPS district for many years and has a ton of success. And when they began to look for a partner, they thought of us. And most notably, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Daryl Yater is our superintendent and all the work that he does around this city, and people noticed that. And so they began looking for a district partner, and they found one in us. And so we're excited to see where this partnership can go and how it can support so many of our families. I'm going to turn things over just for a moment to Elaine Fink, who's a good friend from Legal Aid Society, along with Margie Weaver and Aaron Slavin, am I saying that right? From Hamilton County JFS. They're going to tell us a little bit more about KISSER, particularly about the history of the program. Come on up, friends.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm
Good
Elaine
evening.
Fink, and it's such a pleasure and an honor to be here in front of you because we have a lot of contact with your district, and I've addressed this board before, but I've also just come to your board meetings, and so much of your work is exciting. So how great to be able to come tonight to help launch what is a very meaningful partnership, and I'm sure will be with Northwest. And before I go on, let me say that I manage Legal Aid's education and children's advocacy, and about 15 years ago, together with leadership of Hamilton County Job and Family Services, Hamilton County Juvenile Court, and Cincinnati Public Schools, we designed what became, it didn't start out with the name, but it became Kids in School Rule. And as Dustin and Daryl know, you don't forget that exclamation point on Kids in School Rule. It is an integral part of what the program is. And so we have a lot of experience with Cincinnati Public Schools working as a collaboration, as a partnership to promote success for children in the foster care who are in foster care. And as has already been mentioned, we are looking forward to creating a partnership for Northwest students who are in custody of Hamilton County JFS. And so now I'm going to ask my colleagues at JFS to introduce themselves.
Hello, good evening,
Hi.
and thank you for having us. My name is Margie Weaver, and I am the Director of Children's Services at Hamilton County JFS. And like Elaine, we are very excited to be here and very excited to expand and formalize our partnership.
Hi everyone, I'm Aaron Slavin. I'm the Deputy Director of Resources and Support Services at Hamilton County JFS. I also echo everyone's real excitement about the expansion of this program in the partnership with Northwest.
So a lot of the reason to be here tonight was to help, because we're the partners, to be here to launch, also to take your questions. And before we can take questions, I think we got to give you a little bit more information. So first we're going to start out with this profile of children in foster care and child protection in Hamilton County, and there's no one more qualified to do that than Margie Weaver.
So I just want to give you some stats and data to give you a landscape of the children that we're serving in Hamilton County. On average, we have about 1,803 children in care at any given time. Ages 0 to 20. In Hamilton County, we often extend foster care beyond the age of 18 to make sure that vulnerable children in care have the best transition as possible through education supports and other housing supports. About 1,200 children, 67%, are school age, meaning 5 plus. 300. Oh, that is just CPS. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
No, the 317.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. That because.
Okay, so currently we're serving about 317. 26% of school-age children are currently enrolled in Cincinnati public schools. So the other children are throughout different school districts in the community and in Ohio, and a few out of state. Currently, we have about 70 students enrolled in Northwest, so that's a pretty substantial number for the greater Cincinnati area. And again, Elaine will talk more and share more about the program, but really it has truly made a difference. Our children come with such disadvantages in terms of being successful in their education, lots of changes in schools, lots of disruptions in care that really leave them really with even worse outcomes than general populations of children in impoverished neighborhoods. So the data will show that we have really changed that trajectory and really made a difference. So.
Great. I can also add that I've learned over the years from my colleagues at JFS that, of course, they have a priority on keeping kids safe. And in addition to kids being safe, a predictor of future success is school stability and school success. So if we jointly can promote school success and school stability for children in the care of this agency, those children are less likely to become homeless, to have substance abuse problems, to become part of the adult criminal justice system. The many ills that are pitfalls for people, it turns out the better they do in school, the better likelihood of success that they have. So the goals of the program, and I'm just going to say these have been the goals agreed through our partners, JFS, the court, Hamilton County Juvenile Court, and CPS. And if over time the Northwest District wants to evolve what the goals are, that's fine. But since we're just launching, we're kind of telling you what the agreed upon goals are and have been to improve stability and academic outcomes, reduce disciplinary removals, because of course kids don't learn if they're not in school to get the benefit of the Northwest valuable education, ensure that students with disabilities in this population are getting services that they need, collect the data so that we can reflect it back and decide, do we need to amend something? Are we making progress? Which is, as you're going to see, we pay attention to third grade reading guarantee, we pay attention to promotion, we pay attention to graduation, all of that. And then coordination across systems is incredibly important, because for Northwest to be able to communicate easily with JFS, legal aid has multiple roles in the program. We all need to work effectively as a collaboration and partners, and that is what we're trying to do. The last goal is, in more recent years of Kids in School rule, promoting participation in extracurricular activities, which I'll tell you the JFS will put funds to promote that, because we also know that kids being in pro-social activities, students being involved, whether it's school-based extracurricular or it's music lessons outside of school or whatever, that those kind of extra activities promote mental health, promote engagement in school. And so that's also a goal for Kids in School rule. This is a slide, and now the data, of course, is coming from our Cincinnati Public Schools program. And we want you to know, like, it's not perfect, but we're very proud of our successes. Let me skip to the last few years. Since the pandemic, everybody passed, am I right? All third graders met the guarantee, so you don't really need to look at the last few years of the graph. But the earlier years, you can see that sometimes kids in school rule students proportionally met the third grade reading guarantee at a higher level than Cincinnati Public. And of course, there's a lot more students at CPS that are not in the Kids in School Rule program. On the other hand, what we do is wrap our arms around, look at those incoming third graders when they're second graders, look at the third graders, and make sure all through the year that they are poised to be able to pass as much as possible. And so we'll be doing that here too. And so we have been very proud of what that achievement is. Sadly, the national graduation rate for kids in foster care, it's 40%. There are some estimates that it's 55%. It sort of depends what source you look at. Not everyone agrees on how you count and what that is. But let's just say you would agree with me, it's a low, dismal rate. And so we are incredibly proud to say that with the Cincinnati Public School program, and we put the numbers there so you have an idea. Until the pandemic, we were a number of years at 100%. You see, we started this graph started in 2012. We actually started a few years before that. We had 100%, 91%, like going down to 88 killed us, but it was also a smaller group. And you see the numbers, because of course who's in custody of Hamilton County changes day by day, week by week, month by month. So when we launch this program and we identify who are the students in today on October 10th, that might change or will change by Friday or by next Monday. And one of the challenges is, as partners, we have to keep up with the data. And so who's seniors today in Northwest? I don't actually know of the 70-ish students. I don't know how many are seniors. Maybe Dustin does, but maybe they'll all be senior, stay all year. Maybe 2 will leave. Either they'll go out of JFS custody or they'll switch to a different school district for some reason. And maybe another student who's a senior will enter their custody and enroll at Northwest. So in other words, those numbers are going to change. So we're very proud and we put a lot of focus on that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So we are really excited about this partnership because of the data that Elaine has shown in terms of the proven success of the program. We are modeling the program after the CPS model, but it's not going to be identical. We're different districts, we have different resources and different supports. So our model that we're going to be implementing to support students in the care of Hamilton County Job and Family Services is about creating a structure of people who can support and monitor the success and the needs of this population of students. So we will have direct points of contact between the multiple agencies. So our district social workers will be that direct point of contact who will be sharing information with Hamilton County JFS, monitoring the students as they transition in and out of care or to different placements, and they will be the direct point of contact for our district liaisons. We are being funded through the county for this program. So we'll have a stipend for building liaisons who at every building will be able to have the information from our district social worker of who are the kids in custody. They will have access to the data to monitor their academics, their behavior, and make sure that they are checking in with the team at the building to make sure that they are getting the wraparound services and supports that they need to be successful. Beyond that, we will also have tutors that will be paid for through this grant, and that will actually be to support the academic achievement of our students. We'll focus with, like Elaine mentioned, the third grade and the graduation rate, but we will expand as we can to make sure that all of our students who are in this program who need the support are getting it. But we'll prioritize those key grade levels to make sure that students are getting prepared for the third grade reading guarantee and are on track for graduation. So we have a structure in place that we can actually maintain and support over time to make sure that all of our students who are in custody are getting the care and support they need to be successful. Dustin?
So the model that we're talking about is having a liaison in every one of our K-12 buildings. That liaison is going to own all of those kids in that building in the sense of knowledge about them, connecting with, and ensuring that they're having success. They will work directly with tutoring staff underneath them to ensure that time is being spent with those students along the way, because we know that one caring adult is a critical piece of success for every kid, not just kids in foster care, but every single kid. And so we know that these kids in particular are vulnerable. And with that, we want to ensure that they're available. And just as Mr. Yater has spoken about, we're going to start with our third grade and our seniors. Then we expand out from there. There is funding available to expand beyond that, well beyond that by our numbers, for sure. But we're going to start being very selective. So from third grade, we go to second grade. From senior, we go to junior. And down the road, and then back into the center, we go until the funding is as far as we can take it, or our tutors are as far as we can take them. And so we're looking to support as many of our 70 students as possible. I don't think a lot of people even know that we have 70 students that are in Hamilton County foster care in our district. That doesn't count any other county, but that's a significant number of the original number that they showed you. And our teachers do an incredible job with so many, all of our kids, honestly, they do. You wouldn't even know. Honestly, you walk into a building, you would never even know. That's because of the love and support of many of the folks that they work with, but also that we work with as well. So the liaisons are going to monitor and watch over. They're going to connect up top with leadership, and leadership's going to meet and talk about how are things going all along the way. So we're very thankful for the funding that has made this an opportunity for our kids. We're very excited about this partnership. Okay, this is incredible. If you don't know what this really means, let me explain it to you. All the districts in our city could have been chosen for this. Any of them could have been. Okay, and we have been. And so that's an expansion of a program that is successful, proven. They've done the work. They know what works. And they said, where else could we go? Where else could we go that would receive this as well as do it really, really well? And they look to us. And I have to honestly say, if that doesn't take you a step back, it should. Because it could have been anywhere. But they chose Northwest Local, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And a lot of it is the partnership that we already have with them. We work in so many different realms together in so many different conversations. It's that collaborative piece of this conversation that is so important. And so we feel very blessed to be the next step. We know that they're going to go probably when this has success, and it will. We know that they may even go beyond this, but we're going to do it right, and we're going to do it well, because that's what we do here. And so we're always going to add the exclamation point at the end of Kisser, because we never want to disappoint anybody. Along the way, I did get noted when I shared the presentation with them that Elaine did mention twice. Hey, by the way, there's an exclamation point there. Hey, Dustin, there's an exclamation point there. I got it. There's an exclamation point. Understood. But we're very excited. And so tonight you have an opportunity to approve the job descriptions for both the tutors and the liaisons. And then from there, we start working towards filling positions and things of that nature. And, of course, my goal will be to come back to you probably early December with an update, if not January. Let's let some things kind of play itself out, get everything settled in, and give you a really full update of how we're doing. And that'll be my intention for you. So we're very excited about the opportunity. Honestly, thank you. Thank you for finding us, choosing us, being great partners all along the way. I really, really appreciate that.
The three of you come back up in case the board has questions. We are excited about this partnership, and we are so thankful that our partnership has evolved to this. So with that, does the board have any questions for this team?
I do, you guys. I know you talked about a grant, Daryl. Is there any cost at all to the district for the services?
So the grant will cover the liaisons and tutoring. We have allocated our own district staff, so Dustin's time, my time, the social workers, we've allocated that as part of what we're going to support to make sure that this is part of a successful program. So other than utilizing our existing staff to ensure that we are meeting the goals of the program, the funding will go to the tutors and liaisons.
Thank you.
So back to the goals, and I took notice of like the last goal where it's encouraging promote participation in extracurricular activities. So I imagine there's probably quite a few barriers for foster students to participate in extracurricular activities. Is like, what are we doing as Job and Family Services or as a district to, break through those barriers?
So we
we actually, obviously, as Elaine said, recognize the very critical need and value of extracurricular activities. So as part of the work we did with CPS, we actually dedicated funds to pay for enrichment services, so that would not be a barrier. And then we actually, through legal aid, contracted with a vendor. I'll let Elaine share the vendor's role, but they do school reach out, individual reach out with caregivers, with students, and really take a lot of time. So we try to remove every barrier, right? Don't wait for a caseworker to make a referral. Don't wait for a child to stand up and say, I want this. So they actually do outreach directly to the students often, or to their caregivers, and say, what's this, what would you like to do? And it's really pretty much anything. So it's not like we funnel everybody into scouts or we funnel everybody into sports. It's really based on their wishes, their desires, and certainly a lot of, it enables a lot of coordination and collaboration with the caregivers to make sure that they can make sure that child gets to gets to those activities, everything's paid for, and again, helps remove those barriers.
I think also, to your point, we will want to hear over time what the barriers are within Northwest, because we have been able to address within CPS if there's transportation, a kid needs a snack to participate in something. Those would be school-based especially. If they need to stay after school, then what happens and how do you get the child home? And because and there may not be a cost either to we have been able to use the funds for the non-school-based activities, because often there might be a nominal cost, but not a lot. But it does vary, and I think we are going to wait to hear what barriers are for students at Northwest, because we don't want to come in pretending we have it all figured out.
But I think the power of it is that when a student has an expressed interest in an activity, a group, that there's a team who will collaborate around the issues and will work diligently to remove those, so that you take away some of the red tape and the bureaucracy, and you get right down to solving the problem.
And that's where the liaison fits in.
Sure. Right.
So-
Because the first two things that come to mind in that particular case is, transportation kind of mentioned, and then the pay to play. And I just, would hate to see that to be a problem. So,
And currently that doesn't have to be a
Yeah.
barrier.
right.
So
Thank you.
we currently have 70 students. What buildings would the positions be at, or would there cover multiple
So
buildings?
we have a liaison at every one of our buildings, K-12. And so there'd be one per building, and then the tutors would work there. And there's enough at each of our buildings to make it worth having a
Okay,
liaison at
that's-
every one of our buildings.
Okay.
So it would be worth the effort and the time, so each one will represent.
Okay. And then when the grant does that cover a specific amount of years? And then the district, if we deem this a success and want to continue on, then the district would think about funding that themselves, or?
Do you want to talk about how the funding is?
So are we on a 1 year? Sometimes we do three-year agreements. This is a 1-year agreement, and there's probably an opt-in for renewals. And there's always an out clause for all parties.
Mhm.
So the hope would be to be successful and to have continued support from the county.
Do you
And it's
see?
been continuously funded in CPS because of the success of the model.
Right.
So we would
Mhm.
hope that the same model would roll with us.
Okay. I was going to ask that. Do you see, just in 1 year of being in a school, the difference in the students to be able to make that decision at the end of one school year? Or?
I think we typically, with CPS, really it was a true pilot, so there was a lot of learning going on, but we kind of know what we're doing now after what,
10
plus
years.
years.
Yeah, 10 plus.
But this will be different, right? So we would anticipate scaling up, right, and figuring this out.
Yeah.
So from our perspective, we've committed funding. I don't see any challenges to continuing funding from Job and Family Services. So, and again, I think we've built in reasonable expectations and incremental benchmarks to get us through the first year and reevaluate. I hope it continues for a long, long time.
So the job, when would that start if it's approved? When would those, I mean, it's,
Once it's approved tonight, Dustin will start recruiting tomorrow.
okay, and recruiting from within the
From our staff.
district?
So liaison and tutors within our own staff is what we're initially
Okay.
aiming at.
Okay.
My goal is to have kids with adults getting tutored 30 to 60 days. All depends on getting the right people all through the process and the right people. And there's consent on the foster side as well. So
Sure.
that it's going to be as immediate as it possibly can be.
And especially with the liaison, we want them in the building that they're supporting, so they have access to the kids, the information, the supports. So we want to try to make sure as much as possible we can have that liaison in the building that they're focused on.
The needs now.
Yeah. Do you guys help do that process since you work so closely with the families and the liaisons through CPS?
Yes.
As far as,
We don't recruit, I misunderstood the question.
oh, like through the training process
Oh,
of the
definitely.
liaison?
Training, we will play whatever role that they want us to play. And to the extent liaisons want to learn more about how the child welfare system works, they will be offered support.
And just to add to that, we have designated staff on Erin's team they're called the education team. And really it really is a priority for JFS to ensure that we do the best that we can to make sure that children are successful and thrive in educational outcomes. And so we are very committed. We've been committed through 4 directors now. We're on our fourth director. We had 2 interims, and we have had a new director appointed this year, and he is very committed to this work and to continued funding of this work.
That's
So
great.
We think the investment is far worth it
Mhm,
in terms
yeah.
of the outcomes that we see in terms of care to children. So.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I look forward to hearing about the success of it as well. Thank you.
So who are we targeting for the liaison position? Do we have a particular role? Is it going to be social workers?
So in our buildings, it would be any of our staff in the building. So it could be counselors, teachers, anyone in the building that is interested in taking on this role. It is a stipend, so it is taking on extra responsibility after the workday to coordinate, to communicate with teachers, to manage records, to make sure that the data that we need as a district team to report with JFS and legal aid is there, so that we can have monthly check-ins. Where are the kids at in terms of their grade, their discipline? So there's a little bit of logistics that the people would be doing, which is why having them in the building is important.
Sure.
Would that person be pulled out of their classroom at any point during the day to handle or meetings or things away from their kids? If it's a teacher that would pull them away from their class and their work that they're...
Most likely not. During the school day, the counselors, the administrators would deal with any issues that are coming up. But a teacher on their plan bill might be checking in with kids. They might be checking in with counselors about records, things like that.
I guess one of the things I'm concerned about is if these internal employees are taking on an additional workload, what might have to be backfilled that would be potentially left unattended if, I know that you're saying a lot of it is after school hours, but if there's a crisis that would occur with one of the 70 kids, I would imagine that team would somewhat assemble to take care of that.
If it was a crisis, we have crisis teams that assemble, and so typically our district social workers would be the ones who would respond, because they ultimately are a single point of contact, just like you mentioned the education team is a single point of contact at JFS, that would then coordinate around the building administrators, the counselors, if there were a crisis situation. It would not fall to the liaison. The liaison is really focused on the tutoring, the other pieces. They wouldn't be directly related in that crisis management.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of wraparound services, very, very big proponent of it. I have an employee who has foster children, and when I speak with her, because I always check in and see how she's doing, she recently had lost a couple of the kids that were removed, and I saw how devastated she was because they're her kids in her eyes. And she shares the challenges that she has, especially going to school, and because everything is different, almost weekly, daily, yearly, whatever. So for the 70 that we have, this is huge. It may be that extra touch that they feel. I mean, inevitably, the kids want to feel connected and loved, and this is another opportunity for them to feel that.
Thank you. We're really
Thank
excited
you,
about
guys.
this.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Oh, one more question.
sorry.
No, I was looking at the data that you had in the earlier years. It was, I down dirty math, about 80% success rate.
Graduation.
Third grade reading guarantee.
Third grade, I love that in the middle of a pandemic, it went to 100%. So what would
They
you,
removed the requirement for the third grade reading guarantee because of the pandemic, so.
I was like, what's the secret sauce with that?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
I tried to be honest about that.
The state removing the requirement.
Great.
I was just going to say, it's probably not a good idea to surprise the superintendent or those who invited you. However, Aaron and Margie and I have brought you swag. And nobody knew about it. So there's enough for your board members. Yeah, well, I can, okay. If I'm allowed to approach you.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're safe.
Yes,
Thank
it's
you.
actually, Aaron's using his tonight. He's in
Got
his
the
wrist.
exclamation
You are
point.
welcome. And can you give one to Jim?
Sure will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
it's a highlighter and a pen. Because you can give them to your liaisons and tutors or your
Fancy
other
pants.
administrators. It's from, JFS has funded the swag. It was CPS swag, but it was left over from our kickoff, so they don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so thank you very
Yeah,
much to
thank you,
all of
guys.
you for being partners and, yeah.
With your rollout with CPS, what, can you give us one or two like really, really amazing successes that you saw with
Oh.
with an individual or?
With the individual student?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, we've had the team, sort of this, what we call web of interventions and supports, come together. You said you like wrapping around. And so we have somebody who was missing school and what was going on. Maybe they come to school, they don't feel very good about how they're doing, disciplinary removal ensues, legal aid gets involved. We all come together, the liaison. We'll say in this particular case, the child was not identified as a student with a disability, but there was thought, and it hadn't even, in this case, attended CPS for all that long, so translate that to Northwest. People get together, they look at the data and what's happening, and they say we should do a special education evaluation, because it looks like there might be reason for that. Everyone gets involved. There's an incentive program. Kid gets some affirmation. She starts feeling better about herself. She starts attending. Amazing that she starts making progress. And there's a concerted effort to keep her stable in your school. Because this, we could be talking about a 10th grader. We could be talking about a 9th grader, right? But I was in my head, I had an elementary student. But whatever. And she makes progress. She's promoted. And she has special ed support. I mean, that's one. You know, I just put an amalgamation of together. We have amazing individual stories, and actually, if you would like them, we write them up for funders for other reasons. I could actually give you, I wasn't ready to just tell one, and some of them are 16, and some of them are 6, and some have a lot to do with JFS and the foster parent and the person in the guardian ad litem role coming together to help that child be able to be successful, and some have to do with the attitude of a 16-year-old. And how do you get that person to want to go to school and work well with the adults and the peers? And it all happens. It's not perfect. We have challenges. The kids have challenges, but we sure do have great success on the school board.
Okay.
And in TPS, they are going the extra mile. And that's one of the things we thank them for. It's not what's mandated by law. It's not even in our sort of MOU. You don't have to do this, but it's been around enough years. And the administrators and teachers and liaisons and psychologists, counselors want to go the extra mile to promote success. I've already worked with Northwest a lot of years. Your superintendent has been a leader in our sort of multi-county collaboration that we have to promote success for kids in foster care. So I already know that Northwest is going to have a similar attitude because you've had it, informally without being part of this. I think there's a lot of the reason JFS wanted to choose Northwest, and we were certainly on board. You also have, I think, maybe the second largest number of students in the county in foster care of Hamilton County students. So CPS has the most. I think we might have the second highest number of kids in this county.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay. Brings us to Student Achievement Liaison Report.
I have a few things tonight. I'd like to congratulate the following students whose artwork will be on display during the Ohio School Board Association Capitol Conference. Forsytha Monte Carlos from Corrigan Middle School, Jewel Johnson, Tyler Ballman, Casey Richter, Mia Heibel, Destiny Harris, and Isaac Swisshelm from Corrigan High School. And then on our website under curriculum is where you can go to view the artwork that will be displayed. Two of our senior AP art students, Mia Heibel and Casey Richter, participated in the Greater Cincinnati High School plein air competition, and they were given art supplies at a location at Gorman Heritage Farms in Sharonville, and to produce artwork where it was then judged. They learned that they were selected as award recipients, second and third place, and they both received monetary awards as well as the honor of having their artwork framed and put on display throughout Cincinnati. Also, Corrigan High School students Brennan Green, Riley Ho, and Lydia Manus auditioned for and have been admitted to the Ohio All-State Choir. They're going to sing along top 100 singers in the state at the Ohio Music Education Association Conference in Columbus on February 4th. So all great students and great accomplishments. And thank you, Brenda, for getting that artwork together. So I just want to encourage the staff and principals to continue to submit things that we can share to Lindsay and Brenda. So
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heather, any legislative updates?
Yeah, I've got one thing here, Mr. Gilbert. Last week, there was submitted in the Ohio Senate, Senate Bill 361, which would waive the requirement for a college or teaching certificate and bachelor's degree for military veterans. The logic being that military veterans have a wealth of experience in dealing with people of all types. And so that's just gotten started. It's not even in committee yet. The Ohio Federation of Teachers, not so excited about it. Their argument is that the real solution to teaching shortage is increasing pay and benefits for people considering the field. So we shall see, but one state does allow that, and that would be Florida. So it's not like this is, you know, a new territory. So we'll keep you posted. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Chris? And we have no Butler Tech. Darryl, do you have anything from Butler Tech?
No, not tonight.
Okay. Any reports from any employee organizations?
We do. We have Sarah Bryant here tonight. Sarah is a intervention specialist at Pleasant Run Middle School and has a social work background, which probably just really excited you about the Kisser presentation. And Sarah is here to share her passion and what she turned into a food pantry.
So this is my second year at Pleasant Run Middle. And last year, after I got established in my teaching career, I went to my principal, Brad Watkins, and pitched a school pantry idea just as like my social work flair coming into the school. And he was on board immediately, had me meet with the PTA. I actually did like the next week, met with them. They were all on board with the idea and are willing to do food drives and things to get product into our pantry. I was also connected to Ann Vinicourt at the Free-Store Food Bank, and she was able to give me an application that we qualified for this year to start a food pantry collaboration with them. So we just got our first shipment in at the end of last month. Super excited about that. And we are teamed up with them to help with food insecurity. So there's families, I know there's a need in this district. I live in this district. My kids go to this district. and sometimes it's like them choosing whether to pay a bill or to buy food for their family, so I wanted to help combat that. With that being said, we get a monthly amount from the Free Store Food Bank, so I order that product in, and then we are planning to do food drives and things to help with collaboration in that, because I don't know kind of where we're at yet. We haven't had our first live date. I don't know how much food we need for that. We're kind of waiting to see how that goes. We are doing 2 evenings a month. So our first evening is this Thursday, October 13th. It's family night at Pleasant Run Middle. So from 6 to 8, while we're having our family night, we're also going to have the pantry open. That's open to all Northwest Local School District. Anyone that's in the district and has an active child, like actively in school, is able to come to our building and get food. There's a small intake form that they'll fill out, so it just asks the last name, first name, and their school ID, just so we know that they're active in our school building, or in one of the buildings in the district. And then it just simply asks like how many adults are age 60 and plus in the household, how many are 18 to 59, and how many are 0 to 17. Very basic. We don't get into further demographic with that. We just need to know the ages of those people. And we report that back to the pantry as how many people were included in that household for assistance. Our pantry is located in our library, and there's a teacher workroom within that, so it's inside that room. And eventually we plan to get students involved with that as well, like stocking the pantry. Student council is willing to do a food drive for the pantry. They aren't allowed to hand out on nights of the pantry, so trying to think of things that they can involve with getting into that without being there on the night of. I also have about 10 staff members that are willing to help as well. Elizabeth Jump is my co-assistant on this, so she is helping me out with all meetings and like getting things organized. The other night we have this month is the 25th, and that's Tuesday, the 25th from 4 to 6. This is like no extra cost to any of us. It's just donated food from the Free Store Food Bank, and then hopefully from food drives that we obtain.
And I asked Sarah to come tonight just because this is another example of our staff going above and beyond to see a need and fill a need, and I was really excited that you took that on, and I wanted the board to be able to hear about the work that you've been doing at Pleasant Run Middle School, and the passion you've had for the pantry. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I think it's wonderful. I think that this is going to turn into something great, and families are going to be affected in ways that you don't even know. So that's
Super
awesome.
excited.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot of community members that have no idea that this is needed.
Mhm.
So, you know, this will spread
Yeah.
like crazy. Logistically, do you have, what do you see are some barriers? Like, I know at Taylor, they had some space concerns, I think. They
Right
used-
now, we have enough space. I think, like, eventually we might need more shelving. At this moment, like, everything's fitting because it's our first shipment. I don't know after we get another shipment what that will look like, and depending on how many people are, you know, working within that. The Free Store provided us with 3 shelving units and a freezer that we have on site. So that was donated by them with us onboarding onto that program.
Well, if you have a need, don't be quiet.
Okay.
How big is the freezer that they gave you? Is it it's not a walk-in type?
No, it's just like a,
Chest
chest
okay.
freezer that you can lift up.
Yeah, I think Mark's right. I think you're gonna be amazed at you know, once the word gets out,
Yeah.
how many participants and beneficiaries you'll have.
Yeah.
Did you, the pantry, have to apply for a 401(3) status at all for the?
So
itself,
all
or
I
how
did
does
was
that work?
apply through the Free Store Food Bank, and they are the ones that send the information. Now, I will monthly report to Chris, and I can, McKee. Chris McKee.
That's
I will
it.
report to you monthly. So starting at the end of this month, I should be sending stuff over. And that's just tallying like what we've been given, like canned foods, dry foods, and then estimated value and who has donated. So I know Nicole's job graciously gave us lunch boxes to put in there, so those are already in the pantry ready to go as well.
I love the partnership with the Free Store. Unless it has changed, they offer a lot more than just food.
Yeah.
Like, we've used them when we worked at Talbot House. If you need signed up for like managed Medicaid or anything, they have contacts, they move this thing through like
Yeah.
I've never seen before. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And they've been around. I can remember when we had the radio station at Coleraine High School reading PSAs for the food store 50 years ago.
Yes.
So it's been
Yeah,
around a
they've
long,
been-
long time.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're not
Thank you,
afraid to get our
Sarah.
hands dirty if you need help. Okay, we received no community comments this evening. And that brings us to Daryl Yater, Superintendent Consent Items.
So tonight, personnel, we have a retirement, 9 resignations, 6 initial appointments, 1 change in status. We have various supplementals, and we also have the job descriptions for the liaison and the tutors on there.
For donations, we have one from Schweitzer Engineering Lab to Coleraine Elementary School. And we have 5 vendor contracts, all non-public contracts for title and support services.
Good evening. We have 2 items from curriculum tonight. We're asking your approval of a revision to our grading and reporting handbook. The elementary teachers and administrators have been meeting with Lori Reilly, and they have recommended that we move to progress book for 2nd grade, assigning letter grades to be more transparent in our communication with families, just like we do in 3rd through 12th grade, and so that we would like to implement that immediately, so we're asking for your approval. We also have a field trip, an overnight field trip on the list for approval. That is for White Oak Middle School, an overnight field trip for their student council to Camp Campbell Guard. This is a trip that they've done for quite some time and a great leadership opportunity for students.
Is there any feedback on I love that we're doing the 2nd grade. I think I like that a lot. Is there any feedback from the families about that at all?
I approve. 2nd grade. I don't know that Lori's gotten feedback from families, but I do know that just the idea of having that electronic accessibility to student progress.
Oh, yeah, I do.
is
I
a
agree.
a nice change.
The feedback that we received is that families are very confused by what 1, 2, 3, 4 and what approaching meets and below even means.
Yep.
So it's hard for them to gauge where their students are. They relate much better to A, B, C, D, F. So while we did not specifically ask them if they wanted that, we took all their feedback of confusion and really tell me where my kids
Sure.
are into account when we made the decision.
Love it. That's awesome. Thank you, Lori.
Okay. So with that, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the adoption of the consent items as listed.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? That passes 4-0. That brings us to Amy Wells, approval of fiscal consent items.
Yes, good evening. We have our special meeting minutes and our regular meeting minutes from September 26th that we'd like to dispense with reading of and approve tonight. So, as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions regarding the meeting minutes, special meeting minutes? That passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
So this is the retire, rehire of a intervention specialist. We had the public hearing at our last meeting, and so this is the recommendation to move forward with the retire, rehire. And the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the personnel item as listed.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion, questions?
Yeah, Mark, several campaigns ago, I guess I've been in my fourth one this time, ran on the platform. The public views this, and I am not criticizing the candidate, Deborah, at all. I'm sure she's well qualified, but the public has issues with it. It's known as double dipping. I had a voter at one meeting say that he's all for the schools, but he just resents it when employees of any government agency have it so much better than he does when he's paying them. And for example, I started taking Social Security a couple of years ago, and I'm on very strict income limits. And last year I had to pay $1,900 or so back to Social Security, and I think it was a $19,000 earning limit. So you can see there's two systems. So it's not a vote against her, it's a vote against the system. And I just wanted to make that clear so she doesn't think that there's anything against her.
I can just say on behalf of the board, since I've been on the board, which is about 5 years now, any retiree hire has always been a very difficult position to fill. It's never been, sure, we'll bring them right back in. It's never been that. It's been heavily scrutinized, actually. It has to be really won over, put to the board. So just to let you know.
Yeah, sure, Mark. It's just to keep faith with what was said.
Sure.
Don't want people saying, oh, you said, somebody will find it.
Yep.
So, anyway, that's understandable, Mark, and I'm sure, special education especially, so hard to get good people for it.
And that passes 3-1.
And then tonight we do have a list of our semi-annual policy review. There are policies listed here. The red line copies are here so you can see the changes that have been made. They are there for information. Any questions you have about those, please let me know. They will be on the next agenda as an action item to accept them.
Are these reviewed by the administrators of the buildings, or how does that process go to review those policies and then send them on to us?
So our consultant from the company that we use, Neola, comes in, we get them in advance, and depending on the department that the policy lands on, that department head reviews that, gets input that they need if there's impact needed for that department, and then they bring it to the meeting, and then the team reviews that with our consultant, and then it comes to you.
Okay, thanks.
Just for curiosity, when would we have, the district would have received these, and when did the due diligence start on it, just out of curiosity?
So we typically, from the time we get the notice that the review is available, depending on when our consultant is available, it's typically about a 4-week period before we get in front of the consultant and go through and make the yes/no changes, that then come to you.
Great, thank you. And that brings us to superintendent update.
So just a couple of dates to keep in mind. Tomorrow is our State of the District at Corning High School at 6 p.m., but we also have an in-service day on Friday, and then Monday is a fall break. So just make sure everybody is aware of those upcoming important dates. Other than that, I'll turn it back over to board member comments.
Any questions for Darryl?
On the canceled buses, I was just curious. I know we've maintained about 5 a day. Are we any closer to having those drivers?
We have 5 driver and trainings right now going through the program. It takes anywhere 4 to 6 weeks for them to be trained and certified. So we're continuing to hire and recruit and bring people into our program. So we're still trying to fill that pipeline.
Okay. Any, on the percentage of kids that are absent, any correlation to the buses? Are we able to look into that at all?
We're updating some of our processes with our secretaries on how they code that. But right now, in order for a student to be coded as excused absence, the parent has to make contact that the reason the child isn't there is because of the canceled bus. So a lot of our data is reliant upon the communication from the families. So our initial communication for the first part of the school year has only been 77 kids absent due to a bus cancellation. We're not sure we're getting this communication directly from the families because we believe it's probably more than 77. But that's the data we have based on the information we have.
That's 77 district-wide.
Yes. And that's because we're relying on the parent to make contact that the reason my child's not there is because of the bus cancellation in order to be coded that way in the system. Otherwise, they're just coded as absence.
Any thoughts on the reaching out to those families on other ways that, as a district, that we can help get those kids to school?
So the reason we put the information out on Fridays about the bus cancellations is to give parents time to start working on alternate ways to get students there.
Sure.
We know that on the days that buses are canceled, the drop-off is there's a lot more cars in the drop-off line.
Yeah.
So that's typically slower. We have parents who aren't typically in the drop-off line who may not know the routine. So there's a lot of logistics that go into that. And we have heard from the buildings that when a bus is canceled, or two buses for a building, it really does clog up the line just because there's more parents.
Yeah.
So we try to put it out on Friday to give parents the opportunity to figure out an option.
And then one other question, we were talking about liaisons and aides in our classes. Our special education department, how many of those teachers have an aide, or are we hiring? I saw there's a few positions listed. Have we hired for those positions?
We
or-
still have some open positions. So in our MD and ED assistants are specifically assistants that work with students with special needs. Some of them are assigned to a unit where they support all students in a specific unit. Some are one-on-one and they support a student through the entire day and they stay with the student all day long, side by side. And some actually work with multiple students in like an access, so they have access to an assistant but not consistently. So we still have open positions for some of our ED and MD positions that we're still actively looking for.
Do you know how many of our classes, or could you look into how many of our special education classes have the aides that they need? Just feel like that's a crucial role for our buildings. And,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
Anything else? Okay. That brings us to board member comments. Mr. Heath?
Thank you, Mark. A couple things. Wanted to thank Ms. Hall over at Northwest High School. Daryl and I met with her and then took a tour on, I guess it was Thursday, and very impressed with Northwest. Clean, friendly. I saw no behavioral problems at all.
No hoods?
Northwest?
No hoods?
I didn't see any hoods, but I wasn't there to see them exchange during the classroom periods. There were classroom changes, but we were in sequester.
No.
But she's very strict with, shall we say, the dress code, and the way she approached it, I'm very pleased with. So I think we're in good hands over there. Second thing, spent some time this afternoon at our weight room over at Colerain High School, and spent some time with one of the coaches, and I asked the coach who's seen all of the other GMC weight training facilities, and I asked him to rate. I'm a big on a scale of 1 to 10, and I asked him to be honest, and he at first said he would rate all the other schools at 10 and us a 0. I said, no, I'm not buying that. So he came down and rated the others a 9 and us a 2. It is sad compared to what he described to me. I've seen some of the others, but he described Hamilton where there's, lighting and windows, and so we need to do something. He said that there's 4 young guys who have transferred to other schools that would be starting for Colerain football if our facilities had been better. And I don't want to see this just keep getting worse, where we're just, with open enrollment between other districts. It's something that we need to consider. And Daryl, I don't know, we had a benefactor who's been talking with us. Is there any news on him?
So we have been going back and forth with Colerain High School staff, Matt and Aaron, who have looked at plans. We've had architects draw them up. They're making additional revisions to the plans, so I believe they're right now still with the architect. So we're waiting to get those back, and then that's what Matt and Aaron would use to take to the different people who are interested in helping fund that. But they're making additional changes, so we have to update those plans again.
Okay. All right, just so it stays on one of the front burners.
Yeah.
But seeing it firsthand, and it was so crowded in there, about 10 of the young guys were outside. He said, you can do that when it's days like today, but you can't do that in January. So that's it, Mark.
Great, thanks. Nicole?
First thing is senior parking spots for the first time at Corrine High School. It's been awesome. Every time I go up there for something, I see a new one that I haven't seen before. And if you haven't been there, the kids have taken this just very personal. There's some sports ones, there's arts, there's religious, there's just everything that I've seen is amazing. So if you get a chance, or if we could possibly get a picture of those that are around there, I think that's awesome. So also I'm excited to see what Kisser does. I think that's great to get those services to those kids, and how we can follow along and not let them feel forgotten, because this is where they spend most of their time, and the teachers, and I just think that's great. And thanks, Sarah, for what she's starting at Pleasant Run. I'm excited to see where that goes, and how that can possibly go around to other buildings in our district. So that is all.
Great, thank you. Matt?
I'm also appreciative of the Kisser presentation and the collaboration, and looking forward to what we're able to help our foster student population succeed and excel. And also looking forward to the success of Food Pantry at Pleasant Run. Thank you to Sarah Bryant for coming and speaking about that. I've seen the successes the Food Pantry's had at Taylor, and they have room until they don't have room. Mm-hmm. You have a, as I'm sure Sarah will, experience at some point, you'll have a food drive that exceeds your, wildest expectations, and where do you go with it? And, I hear, as part of the library, and it's like, well, next thing you know, your library's full of food. So it's a good problem to work with, though, that we can, fill a need in our community. That's all I have. Thank you.
Good, thank you. I want to start out doing a shout out to our fine arts. A couple years ago we had the music teachers come in and give a presentation about some of the struggles going through a pandemic and not having the kids able to gather and practice under the means. And Jacob Page had his group had a competition a couple weeks ago and placed second. Yeah, I kind of felt bad because I wanted to say something about that at the last meeting, but I had something else on my mind. That is such a feat, really, if you think about it. I remember speaking with Mr. Page and Mr. Greenwood about, they were worried about the program, like kids, they couldn't get them to gather, they couldn't, and that sparked us to start talking about our finer arts earlier on, and then connecting them all the way through high school, I thought was outstanding. And now they're going to be a capital conference, there's going to be performances and presentations, and I love that. Second, I want to back up what Nicole said about the senior parking spots. I cut through there when I'm heading places just to see what's going on at the high school, and I think I said this last board meeting. The synergy between the people that were there doing this project, you're seeing kids help other kids, you're seeing parents. One of the parents that spoke to me, she broke out in tears. She goes, I've not seen my kid this happy. Like, it was amazing. And we're just painting a parking spot. I mean, but it's so personal for them. I don't know what we could do that would give that a feel like that to our students, honestly. The only thing I'd be upset about is I would want to park there at football games, but yeah. I want to thank Sarah for the food pantry. Northwest is very heavy with wraparound services. Obviously, education is our foundation for our school district, but there are so many barriers that our students and community have, and we play such a huge role in meeting these and getting rid of these barriers. Just like during the pandemic, we were serving 30 to 50,000 meals a week. I mean, that's substantial. And I just think a lot of people don't really understand. I think if they understood, they would appreciate it. I think I'll give everybody the benefit that they just don't understand all the moving pieces to create an environment for kids to be successful while they're in our district. And I'm excited about the KISSER project, obviously. You know, like I said, I have an employee who is a foster parent, and she shares some of the barriers, and it's already difficult enough, you know, having living with your family. There's just barriers all around, and then to have a student, a child that has been potentially moved around and have just instability after instability, for us to come together with the organization that manages that it's priceless. I think that's outstanding. I will say that I fear that it may spawn more needs in our district once we start finding successes of how to manage some of these crises that these kids have, as far as just like additional positions, things like that. I mean, it's a good problem to have, to be able to solve these things, but I see it kind of potentially unwrapping some things that we may need additional services in the future. But I love the initiative. And that's really all I have for this evening. Anybody else? Great. And then we will adjourn the meeting. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Great. That passes 4-0. Thank you, everybody, for participating and coming. Thank you for all of our speakers and our staff.